Well, I have something fascinating for you. The past of Republican Senator J.D. Vance is coming back to haunt him, as he's now been selected as Trump's vice presidential running mate, and he said a lot of things about Trump that I don't think Trump would like to hear. So I want to walk you through this. You have text messages, you have just reporting, and then you have audio and video. So a bunch of stuff of past statements from J.D. Vance, who was a prominent author before he became a U.S. Senator from Ohio. Now he's been picked to run with Trump for the position of vice president. Let's start with this reporting from the Washington Post. The not so kind things J.D. Vance said about Trump before he was VP pick. Senator J.D. Vance, who was just named Donald Trump's running mate, is a staunch supporter of the former president, but that hasn't always been the case. In February 2016, Vance sent a message to his former law school roommate, Josh McClaren, that McClaren has recounted publicly. In it, Vance said he went back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical asshole like Nixon, who wouldn't be that bad, and might even prove useful, or that he's America's Hitler. So he goes back and forth between thinking the two. Now, that phrase, America's Hitler, as I mentioned in a different segment, is particularly notable, relevant, given that in the wake of what we've now thoroughly covered as a truly horrific, terrible event over the weekend where a shooter attempted to take the life of Trump, luckily failed, and then ended up killing one of the supporters in the crowd. Horrible. One of the things we're seeing in response to that, unfortunately, for MAGA folks is jumping to trying to exploit the moment to attack, I would say, people on the left dishonestly. And one of the ways they're doing that is saying that people who have pointed to the authoritarian impulses of Trump, or Trump saying he wants to be a dictator on day one, or talking about how he doesn't respect democracy, that is what caused this shooting. And the phrase they've zeroed in on is they called Trump Hitler, so of course it was going to cause this. So it's fascinating to see that the person Trump's choosing as his running mate has called him Hitler. I go back and forth between thinking Nixon or Hitler. And that's what J.D. Vance said, which is very, very relevant given that sort of talking point that's out there. I should note, because people watch these videos individually, as I've said now a few times on the full show. And if you are watching just this video, you haven't seen my broader coverage of the assassination attempt and the heartbreaking nature of it, and all of that, and political violence need to be denounced, you can see my other videos for that. But also, as we've now covered, we don't even know that this was a left-winger as of when I'm recording this video. And there's, of course, the news that he's a registered Republican, and news that a classmate said he's conservative. So we don't need to just instantly politicize it and start saying, oh, is this or that? Let's just wait until we know for sure. Then you have reports that he donated to a progressive cause. So open to the options, at least I am. But I do want to note that that talking point is extra strange right now, given that we haven't even figured out a motive for sure. But then you have this.
This is an evolution, and I know you've been asked about this before, about past comments that you've made about Donald Trump. You've said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him, terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible. Those are things. This is an evolution.
Brutal, brutal stuff. And this is also brutal. Ron Filipkowski showing these texts between J.D. Vance and a friend. And someone said, are you planning to oppose something? And J.D. Vance said, yes, just as with the... Actually, let me read, make sure. J.D. Vance DM'd to his friend where he admits he could never get elected to the Senate in Ohio in a Republican primary if he opposed Trump. So, are you planning to oppose Trump? I'm assuming that text reads, but it's cut off. And J.D. Vance responds, yes, just as with the House version. I'll back off of being super strident if I can convince a few members to kill it altogether, but they all know how I feel. So I was wrong. It wasn't about Trump, but some legislation. And then the guy responds, good for you. And then says, someday when you're a senator, you something, 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 way to influence policy. And then J.D. Vance says, haha, can you imagine running as an anti-AHCA populist who thinks Trump is a moral disaster? Where's my constituency? Where's his constituency? He doesn't have one, so he shifted his views to get one. Truly sad stuff. Truly, truly. Before going further with more videos, Trump did make the announcement saying, after lengthy deliberation and thought and considering the tremendous talents of many others, I've decided that the person best suited to assume the position of Vice President of the United States is Senator J.D. Vance of the great state of Ohio. J.D. honorably served our country in the Marine Corps, graduated from Ohio State University in 2 years, summa cum laude, and is a Yale Law School graduate, where he was editor of the Yale Law Journal and president of the Yale Law Veterans Association. JD's book, Hillbilly Elegy, became a major bestseller movie as it championed the hardworking men and women of our country. JD has had a very successful business career in technology and finance, and now during the campaign will be strongly focused on the people he fought so brilliantly for, the American workers and farmers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota, and far beyond. In these truly troubling, uncertain, and turbulent times, if you appreciate the work that this show does, I would greatly appreciate you clicking the subscribe button if you haven't already. Easy, free, but it makes a big difference. Back to the video. So that's his message. We'll just keep going through these.
Country. And I think it's ridiculous that we're focused on this border in Ukraine. I got to be honest with you, I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or another.
Well, that's not about Trump, but just a vile statement. You also have this audio.
And I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud, okay? But with that said,
you heard J.D. Vance in the background saying he agrees.
And I can give you 95 things about him that drive me nuts. At least, if I can give one positive, at least he is casting a light on this way of life. Now, I think he's doing it in a way that because he's so awful, it makes them sort of look awful, which stinks. But at least books like yours are getting attention because of him, so that's at least something, right?
Yeah, well, I told my editor that America's big problem would be the book's gain, so I guess it all balances out in the end, but not really, of course, because I would definitely rather the book not be getting the attention that it's getting, but have a better set of political candidates running for president.
Well, the candidates are awful, but the issue here, which is...
Yeah, so just having a conversation about how terrible Trump is. There you also have this.
J.D. Vance, in his own words.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. As somebody who doesn't like Trump, I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. I didn't vote for Trump because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious, him being really outrageous and offensive.
On Twitter, Vance called Trump, quote, reprehensible, an idiot, and Vance loves Mitt Romney.
I'm a never Trump guy.
That's the real J.D. Vance.
And now he is Trump's running mate. So this is the least shocking thing ever, because it seems that every ally of Trump at some point has said horrible and often accurate things about him, and then has to walk them back. And it's interesting, we have text there of him saying, but where's my constituency if I keep to this? Before deciding to run for Senate, he's saying, where would I get support if I'm both sort of MAGA but don't like Trump? And I'm assuming that's sort of what that text meant. And that's shocking, but again, it's sort of the Lindsey Graham situation and many others, Ted Cruz. People so willing to abandon their principles in service of really political relevance. I say in service of Trump, which is what it is, but it's because they want to stay politically relevant. It's because they want power, so hungry for power, that they'll abandon what is so much more valuable, which is principle. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. If you want to get an extra episode of the show daily and support the work that we do, you can do so by clicking the join button below.